Well, let's dive into this Republican win on tax reform. CNN political analyst and historian Julian Zelzia joins me now from New York. Julian, despite all the trouble surrounding the president and his inner circle right now, this is a win for the president. What should we make of it?
Absolutely. It's obviously his first major legislative accomplishment since his presidency started. So that's very important for the Republicans to show they can produce. And it's a huge corporate tax reduction this is going to be that will make many parts of the Republican coalition happy. So on both fronts, assuming this moves forward to his desk for a signature, this is a political victory, at least in the short term.
And looking at the economics of it, Julian, this is, we're going to see about 60% of the benefits go to the top 1%. It's this trickle-down theory, hoping that the corporates will pass on these savings to their employees. Historically speaking, some have said this is similar to the tax reform in 1929 before the Great Depression. As an historian, what do you make of it?
Well, this certainly comes out of supply-side economics. I'd at least link it to Ronald Reagan in 1981, where most of the benefits from these tax reductions go to wealthier Americans and to business. That's exactly what this is about. There'll be very minimal relief for many middle and working class Americans, and the relief they obtain will actually end and expire in 10 years compared to permanent corporate tax cuts. So this is really a tax cut aimed at upper class America, and it goes against the economic populism that President Trump promised from the start of his presidency.
Yeah, what he was voted in on. And this bill could actually raise taxes, as you mentioned, for some of the middle class. And even with a projected economic outlook, it will increase the deficit by about $1 trillion.
Right. So if Republicans want to argue that they are going to balance the budget and their fiscal conservatives, it will be difficult to do that with this bill behind them. This is a deficit-inducing piece of legislation, and even if the economy does as well as the predictions they are making, it will still result in a huge deficit. So we are now going to go into an era where the government owes more than it's taking in, and that will create a lot of pressure on domestic spending.
And also pressure on healthcare, given the fact that millions will lose insurance under this tax reform because it's tied to healthcare.
Right. So he didn't repeal or replace the Affordable Care Act, but President Trump has now figured out another way to weaken the legislation by removing this mandate, which is essential to keeping costs down. So we are hearing that millions will lose their health care at the time that many wealthier Americans are going to be gaining very significant tax benefits.
And what does Flynn and his guilty plea mean for the president? We saw that tweet from the president today saying that he fired his former national security advisor for lying and that his actions were lawful. Were they?
Well, I think that's a question. It's not something that's been confirmed, and I think that is the entire purpose of this investigation, to ask these kinds of questions. Yesterday's news was very troubling to the White House, regardless of what the president tweets. They now see they are looking for contacts with the Russians, not simply about the election, but about policy during that transition period. And we're now talking about the inner circle of the White House, and it's clear Mueller is also looking finally into the obstruction charges. So this was a big, big day in the investigation, and I think it's getting worse, not better, for the White House.
And fair to say, Julian, that this political fallout from all of it will continue well into the new year.
Oh, absolutely. We're certainly going to be talking and looking at this in 2018.
All right, Julian Zelzia, good to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.